So these are the standard domain models for SDTM. What are CDISC concepts is CDISC is nothing but clinical data interchange standard consortium. In CDISC again we have SDTM and ADAM. What is SDTM? SDTM is nothing but study data tabulation model. In SDTM we have different groups of datasets. What are the standard domain models? Special purpose domains, interventions, events, findings about trial design and relationship datasets. And these are again SDTM datasets are again divided into three core variables: required, permissible, and expected. These are again divided into five types of variables and three core type. What are the five types of variables? Identifier, topic, timing, qualifier, and rule variables. We discussed in last class what are identifier, what are topic, what are timing, what are qualifier, and what are rule. Again, in the rule qualifier variable, they are divided into subgroups. We also discussed about three types of core variables called required, required, permissible, and expected. Today we'll be working on DM dataset, demographics. So today we'll be working on DM. So these are the different variables that are present in DM dataset. What is in DM dataset? DM is demographics information. We have an CRF page called demographics page, and all the information collected on that page will be going into this dataset. So all the information collected in demographics page. Let me open CRF page. So this is the page for demographics. What kind of information is collected here? Date of birth, gender, ethnicity, race, all such kind of information is collected on this page. This information goes into dataset called TM. So if you see implementation guide, so this is the domain for demographics, and these are the standard variables that should be created when we are creating demographics dataset, and these are the labels that need to be created. As I said you, there are three types of core variables. So what is study ID domain? These are called as required variables. What are required variables? We already discussed in last class that required variables are those variables that should be always present in the dataset. Whenever you see a variable name here, and in the core part if it says required, those variables should be present in the dataset and their values cannot be null. The variable should be present and the values of the variable or observations should not be missing. What are expected variables? Expected variables, they also should be present in the dataset. These variables are expected in the dataset, but values can be null. What is the third kind of variables? Permissible, like investigator ID. This variable is called permissible variable. If the information is collected, that variable should be kept in the dataset. Otherwise, the variable should be dropped from the dataset. So these are three kinds of variables. And when it comes to role, I said right, identifier, timing, topic. This is the this information gives what is the role of the variable. And here CDISC note explains how to derive each variable. What is study ID? What does study ID say here? Study ID says it is an unique study identifier for the study. What is domain? Domain, what is the domain we are creating? DM. So the value for this variable will be always DM. What is uSubject ID? uSubject ID is nothing but we have to concatenate study ID, site ID, and subject ID. Let's open datasets and start working. Then we'll understand. So for this, I have to collect raw data. Where do I have raw data? I have raw data in data input. So this is my raw data. I need to call in this path. So I'm copying this path and pasting it here, and I'm calling the data as input data. So the data is here now. So all these are raw data sets. These data sets are given by CDM group. CDM group is nothing but clinical data management team. We'll get the raw data sets from clinical data management team. So right now we are working on CRF page called demographics. So this is the raw data set for demographics. We need to convert this data set into standard data set of DM. We need to convert this standard dataset called DM. How do we convert into standard dataset? By following the implementation guide. We will see the rules, how to create each variable, how to assign their lengths, how to assign their label names, and depending on the type of the variable, we'll create each and every variable present in this shell. This is our shell for DM. Similarly, we have shell for all our other datasets. This is for DM, right? Like DM, we have for subject elements, CM is concomitant medication, adverse event, medical history, ECG, LB, questionnaires. So we have several data sets. So now we are working on DM called demographics. So we have a raw data set called DM. So here we have a variable name called study. If I see an implementation guide, to which variable can we relate it? Study is nothing but study ID. So I can rename that variable into study ID and make that label as study identifier. Okay, first of all, we'll create all the variables. Then we will assign the labels at the end of the program. Okay, let's start programming. I have called in the datasets. They are present in my input folder now. Okay, now my work folder is empty. I will show you what this is doing at the end. Don't worry about this piece of code. Once we have done with our entire program, I will explain what this options valid var name upcase does. So where am I taking the data from? DM, because input.dm, from which library? Input. From input library, I am calling dataset called DM. And from that, I need to call variable called study. I need to rename it as study ID. So why am I doing strip? To prevent any leading spaces, to delete any leading spaces. For domain, what is the variable domain? So domain, it should be value of DM. You can either input it manually, or do we have any variable saying DM? Yes, we have it here. As this is an 24 patient study, demographics dataset is called as an subject level dataset. So what is subject level dataset? There will be only one record per each subject. So I'm renaming this as my variable domain. So DCM name as domain. Okay, again I'm using strip. Okay. For subject ID, subject identifier which must be unique with the study, often the ID of the subject as recorded on the CRF. Let us see in my input dataset, do I have any variable name subject ID? Yes, I have variable name here called PT, which is nothing but patient ID. So I'm relating this variable as my subject ID. So I'm renaming this patient into subject ID. I'm removing any leading spaces again. What is site ID? So what was my next variable I'm taking? I'm creating this variable site ID. Site ID is nothing but study site identifier, unique identifier for study within a site. Here, the entire study is done only at one site, right? So we'll be having only one site, which is nothing but in this one, inv, this variable. If you go to label, column attributes, investigator ID. So we are making this as my site ID. Normally it depends. Sometimes you can take this one also. You need to ask your team lead or someone which variable need to be used to mention the site ID. So here in this study, they are using 519 as the site ID. Now what I need to create after collecting study ID, subject ID and everything, I need to create my uSubject ID. For creating my uSubject ID, what variables am I concatenating? Study ID concatenated with dash, concatenated with site ID, concatenated again with dash and my subject ID. See, I'm creating uSubject ID. I'm concatenating my study ID, my site ID and my subject ID is nothing but patient ID. Here, why am I using substr and why am I taking only from 4? Because site ID already had the information of 519 here, right? Site ID already contains information of 519. Here, my patient number is only 001. 519 is again information of my site ID. So I'm stripping, I'm using substr. So here 519001 and P519 is my site ID. So this is my site ID and same information is printed here. My subject numbers are only 001, 002, 003. This information is carried here again. So I don't want this. So what option can I use? Substr from 4. Substr of variable name comma 4. So then what it does, it goes from fourth character. This is my fourth one, right? 1, 2, 3, and this is my fourth one. So it counts from fourth one. That's the reason I'm using substr for my PT. Okay. And birth GTC we have to convert into IS867 date format. If I go to my input date, how is my birth date present? It is present like this, right? So what was my birth date? Let's take the first one, 1976 06 22. 1976 06 22. If you go to implementation guide, what is the standard date format? IS8601 DT dot. Any one of you, what is IS8601 DT dot date format? How is it shown? Shravya, what is IS867 date format?
It will be MMDDYY.
No,
Month, date, year.
no.
MON, month, date and year. Yes.
What was IS867 date format? Any one of you?
22nd
Year,
June
month, and date.
Yeah,
1976.
correct, Monica. It's YYYY
Hmm.
GD. This concatenated with time. If you have hours also, HH, SS. You should never forget this date and time format. This is the standard date format that FDA requires. So this is called IS61 date format. So how is our current date in raw data set? It's like this. So now I need to convert this into this format. What can I do for that? Any one of you? How do we convert the above date into IS8671 date format? So no one knows the answer?
Sir, date 10.
No. Can you see the above date? How is it present?
It's year, month, and date.
So no one is practicing, guys, then. That simple task. I need it only till here. I need it only till here. I need it only till here. So how do I do the above date as shown below?
It will be date 9 dot.
You don't need to use formats.
Sir, we can use the substr and get the first 4 character for year and then concatenate with the dash and
Good,
then take
good,
the
Vibha. So no one else is practicing base as, guys. So how do we do, Vibha? We use substr, right?
yes
So substr of variable name comma 4
4
1 comma
and
4
then
and concatenate it with pipes.
with the yeah.
Guys, if you are not practicing, you are the one who are losing. So you'll be behind the others. Whoever is practicing good, they are ready to go to face or they are ready to attend Skype calls and they will get job quick. It's up to you guys. If you don't want to practice, that's okay. I'm losing nothing. So what are we doing? We are doing substr of variable name comma 1 comma 4. So we are selecting first 4. I don't need to explain this step actually because this is just base as step. And in the second part, I'm selecting from 5 to 2. What does 5 to do? Does it selects 1 comma 4 selects from here to here. 5 comma 2 selects from here to here. 5 comma 2. It selects from 5th position to 2 more positions. And what do we do at the last place? 7 comma 2.
7 comma 2.
It selects the last two and we are concatenating each part with dash by using pipes.
Right.
So once we run this step, we created these all variables. So DM is created. So we created study ID, subject ID, site ID, uSubject ID. In uSubject ID, we concatenated study ID, site ID, and we used substr of 4, right? We are only selecting from 4th position and we concatenated with dashes at each places. And when it comes to date, we converted into IS8601 date format. That's our first step. So we have created study ID, domain, uSubject ID, subject ID. Now we have to work on the dates. So normally where do we have the date information? What when the what is RFSTDTC? First we will know what is an RFSTDTC. RFSTDT is nothing but subject reference start date or time. Reference start date or time for the subject. This is the explanation for that variable, guys. How do we need to create this? So reference start date or time for the subject in IS 8601 date format, usually equivalent to date or time. Don't worry about this. So we need to focus this. When subject was first exposed to study treatment. So what date does this variable contains? This variable contains when was the subject first exposed to study treatment. Let's say our study has 24 patients, right?
Hmm.
So each patient is exposed at certain date, right, to drug. So let's say our study is planned to 10 doses. But on which day the patient was first exposed, that day should be present in this variable. When was he first exposed to our study drug? When was he first exposed to our study treatment? That should be the date. Where do we have such information? We have that information in exposure dataset. Exposure dataset contains when was the patient exposed. Such kind of information was present in exposure dataset. So we'll go to exposure dataset. Let's select one of the patient. Where patient in, we have 24 patients, we'll select only one patient. So this is one patient's information. No need to worry about these variables. So each patient is exposed to drug for 18 days, right? That was our study protocol, right? So each patient is exposed to drug for 18 days, and on day 13 and 18 they are assigned with blinded treatment again. So 1 to 18 they every day they have assigned with doxycycline. That's how it's given in the protocol. Let me open the protocol again. Single center, double blinded, two-way crossover study. All subjects will receive doxycycline totally 18 days, right? 1 milligram for 1 day, 2 milligram for 2 days, 4 for 4 days, then 8 for 8 days, 8 for 11 days, totally 18 days. Apart of doxycycline for 18 days, they're also assigned on day 13 and 18 with our randomized treatment, which is nothing but test and reference. That is how the dataset is also designed. On day 1 to 18, they are assigned with doxycycline. On day 1, 1 milligram, for 2 days, 2 milligram, for 4 days, 4 milligram, and for rest of the 11 days, 8 milligram. And on day 13 and 18, this is given. But when was the patient exposed for the first time? This one, right? Day 1. This will be my RFST-DTC for subject number 1. This will be my RFST-DTC for subject 1. So how do I select this record? By using exvisit is equal to day 1. Exvisit is equal to day 1. And again, I'm converting the date into standard date format. Similarly, I'm using substr function. Here I have also time. So I have selected time also concatenated with t for converting into ISR 67 date format. Okay, let us run this. Let's just go to work. See, now I got day 1 record for all 24 subjects. So this is RFST-DTC for subject 1. This one is RFST-DTC for subject 2. So on. How did I do this? I have taken all the records, and from all the records I have selected only day 1. For this is subject number 1, right? These records are for subject number 1. Here I am selecting only day 1. For subject number 1, day 1, what is the date? 2013, 918. 2013, 918, right? For subject 1, day 1. Similarly, for subject 2, if you want to check where. For subject 2, day 1, what is the time? 918, 632. 918, 632 for subject 2, day 1. Similarly, I have selected for all 24 subjects their first treatment given date and time. So that is my RFST DTC. What is RFE and DTC? RFE and DTC is end date and time for the subject. So when was the subject exposed to last dose of drug? Before that, we'll discuss RFXE and DTC also. We have RFST DTC, RFE and DTC, RFXST DTC and RFXE and DTC. What is RFXST DTC? First date of exposure to any protocol specified treatment or therapy equals to earliest of EXST DTC. Most of the times this will be similar to RFST DTC until unless if there is any protocol specified treatment. What is a protocol specified treatment? Let's say they have planned for certain drugs at certain times for let's say what is our protocol says here. Protocol says here day 13 and 18, right? But some other studies are designed in a different way. Then we need to collect different dates for that. It will be mentioned in protocol how to take those dates. For now, we will do RF, XE and DTC. So what we are doing again we are taking exposure data set and we are selecting EXST DTC. Let me run this and show you what date comes in. See, I'm taking same data set and I'm collecting all the dates. These are the dates for my subject 1. These are the dates for my subject 2. Now if I want to select last date for each subject, what can I do? It's a programming question. That will be my RF, X, E and DTC. If I want to select last date for each subject, what is the last date for this subject? Day 18, right? I want to select this date and time. For subject 2. For subject 1, I want to select this one. For subject 2, I want to select this one. So on. I want to select day 18 for each subject. What can I do? There are two options to do that.
No dupe.
No. Who is that with no dupe?
It's last RFXE and DTC.
So how do we select by using programming?
If EX visit is day 18, then display, otherwise
Yeah,
else not.
that's one kind of thing. Yeah, that's good, Anjali. But there is other way of selecting the last date and time for each record. We worked on this in 2 classes.
Do loop and we can use do loop and arrays. I don't know. I didn't practice that.
There was something dot last with
Go ahead, Vipa.
No, I don't remember exactly where I used it, but I have seen somewhere
Yeah,
dot last.
dot last.
I think only Vibha is at least looking at the programs after the class. Yes, last dot is correct. We need to sort it by PT and RFX in DTC because we already created RFX in DTC variable by selecting dates, right? Here we have created IS 8601 date format. We have to sort it by ID and date, then select last dot. So what is last dot PT here? This is my last dot patient, right? For 01. This is last record for 1. This is last record for 2. It selects the last record for each patient.
Okay.
So now if I run this, I got last date of each record. Anjali, what you said is correct, but if you see this one and this 22, subject 11 and 22, there is different case. Why it is different case? Because the subject has came to the clinic only 12 days. Then I have to select the day 12 for the subject, right? Because he has not come to the clinic like day 13, day 14. Day 12 was his last day for the clinic. Then I have to select that record. If I use day 18, I was not able to select this record, right? Similarly, for this one, subject number 22, this record hasn't shown up to the clinic after day 8. Might be some reason. We'll also learn that why subject hasn't come to the clinic after day 8. Then I have to select the last possible date for that subject for the drug. So this is my last possible date for that subject. If I use where ex visit is equal to day 18, then I will not have these both subjects, right? These subjects will not be present in my data set if I select day 18. That's the reason I'm using last dot. So it selects the last available date. Again for RFE and DTC. What is RFE and DTC? RFE and DTC is nothing but my final visit date. What is RFXE and DTC? When was the last dose given? When was the last dose given? And RFE and DTC is my final visit date. RFE and DTC usually equivalent to date and time when subjects were determined to have ended the trial. So when did the subject has ended the trial? What is the difference between RFE and DTC and RFEXE and DTC? As we studied earlier, some let's say day 18. Day 18 is my last visit date for each subject. But subjects will be asked to come to the clinic for 3 to 4 more days for tests, right? So if patient has visited 4 more days for study, day 22 will be his final visit date, right? But when was my last dose given? On day 18. This will be my RFXE and DTC. This will be my RFE and DTC. RFE and DTC is the last visit date. This is the last dose given date. That's the difference between RFE and DTC and RFXE and DTC. So where are we getting this RFE and DTC from? We are getting this from dispersion dataset. What information does dispersion dataset contain? Dispersion dataset contains the information when was the patient first assigned to the drug and when was he last, what was his last visit date. If I go here, I have patient 1 to 24 here. You can see, right, 1 to 24. I have their screening dates. If you go to the end, dates will be present. These are the screening dates for 1 to 24 patients. And again, I have information of 1 to 24 patients from here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 is here. 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 19, 20, 21, 22 is here. So I have 24 patients information again here. So I have 24. What is this information? This is the final visit information. So how can I select these records from this data set? I can select where CP event is equal to final visit, and then I can use these dates here, VIS DTD. I can use these dates. And as we saw earlier, patient 11 and patient 22 has been dropped from the study, right? Earlier, patient 11 and 22, if you see here, these two subjects haven't completed the study till day 18. What was the reason? For some reason, subject number 22 has signed withdrew consent. That means he is not interested in participating the study further. So that is the reason that patient has been discontinued the study. When it comes to other patient, protocol deviation, that means he hasn't met some of the inclusion, or he did some follow exclusion criteria. Might be that is the reason he has been deviated from the protocol. But all other subjects has been completed the study complete. You can see the information completed. So we are selecting the information from input.ds, where CP event is equal to final visit. RFE and DTC is, we'll select this date. Keep RFE and DTC run. So we got all 24 patients information. This is RF, E and DTC. So we have collected RF STDTC. We have collected RF STDTC, which is nothing but when was the patient first exposed to the drug. What is RF and DTC? What was the last visit? What is RFEX and DTC? This is nothing but when was he last exposed to the drug. What is RF XSTDTC? This is similar to RF STDTC. For this study, we don't have two different dates because there is no other protocol specified date. So both RF STDTC and RF XSTDTC will be same. What is RF ICDTC? RF ICDTC is nothing but informed consent date. We have it in our CRF, that is present in disposition page. Demograph, surgical examination. So we are collecting that information also from input DS. If I go to my input DS, here DS category says informed consent. So I need to select these records and I need to select where DS cat is equal to infocon, and these are the dates when the patient has signed the informed consent. Why do we sign the informed consent? That means on this date, patient is agreeing that he is going to participate in the study. So these are the informed consent date for all these 24 records. So I need to again select input.ds, where ds cat is equal to informed consent, and I'm converting my date into standard IS 8601 date format. I'm only keeping these two dates. DS1. So now I also got RF ICDTC. Okay. What else we have left? We have created all the variables in the first page. Study ID, domain, new subject ID, RFSTDTC, ENDTC, XSTDTC, XENDTC, ICDTC. Now we need to create RFPENDTC. What is RFPENDTC? This will be bit confusing, guys, but don't worry. So we have final visit date. Okay. We have also last dose date. Final visit date is nothing but my RF ENDTC. Okay. What is my last dose date? My last dose date is nothing but RF
RF,
X
Excel,
ENDTC.
ENDT.
So then where is this RF PNDTC coming from? What is this doing? This is the third date. You only need to differentiate between these three dates. Then you won't have any confusion. These are only the three dates with end dates. So these are three different end dates. This says about final visit date. This says about last dose date. This says about, I will explain now. Sometimes, even after the final visit, patient says that I have headache. He will call the clinic and say, I have headache, or I have some adverse event, or I have vomiting sensation, or he might report any of the events that he is facing. Then patient will be asked to come to the clinic again, and he will be taken. Reports will be collected for ECG, for vital signs, for labs, and if he reported any adverse event, his adverse events collected will be reported. So then this date can be, then this date will be later than my final visit date, right? Because patient has reported these events after my final visit date. So there is chance of one more end date, right? So such kind of dates will be collected from, such kind of dates will be reported in RFP and DTC. So if any of the patient reported any events or any analysis is done after the final visit for that patient, that last date will be present in RFP and DTC. So for this, we need to get information from EG, VS, LB, and AE. So I need to select. So for that, what am I doing? I'll debug this macro and show what I'm doing. Let's say I'm taking input dot EG. So I'm collecting the data from input dataset EG, and I'm saying it as EG, and or let's take it as AE. Out is equal to AE. By variable, I'll take PT here by patient, and date is my AEN date, and time is AEN TM. If I go to my input data set, I have AE data set. So which information am I collecting now from this data set? I'm taking my patient number. Okay. I'm also selecting my AEN date and AEN time from this data set. So I'm taking my input AE and I'm taking my PT, AEN date, AEN time. I'm sorting the input data set. Then here also I'm using same sort. Okay, here I'm keeping only my those three variables and DCM name, and I'm converting my DT as DTC. What is my DT here? AEN DT. And what is my TM here? AEN TM. I'm selecting last dot where, that means last dot PT. What is my output data set? AE. Here my output data set is AE. So let's go to this data set. So I have three records for subject number 3, right? For these three records, I have to select their last dot date. For those three records, I have to select last date. Which is the last date out of these three records? 10-6, right?
Sixth.
2013 10-6. So I need to select this one for patient 3. That's what I'm doing. I'm sorting first by end date and end time. I'm only keeping those records when I'm taking the data set, and I'm sorting it and I'm doing last dot pt. So for subject number 3, it should be 10-6, right?
Sir, in the third line also there are three E.
Okay, we copied it from there. It should be here also then. AEN date. What's the variable name? AEN DAT. EN DAT. Now it should be good. Yep. So for subject number 3, I have selected 10-6. Similarly, for each subject, I am selecting their last date. So this refers to my which data set. Similarly, I need to select it from EG, I need to select it from vital signs, I need to select it from labs. So for this, I'm creating a macro. What am I saying for in macro? I'm saying ampersand in. What will be my ampersand in? In is equal to input AE. What will be my out? Out is AE. Where PT? I'm saying by PT here. Sort by PT, ampersand DT and time. Here my date will be AEN date, my time will be AEN time. So I'm inputting into an macro here. Similarly, uh, in the second line, I'm selecting LB. In the third next line, I'm selecting EG. In the next line, I'm selecting VS. So at single step, I'll be outputting 4 data sets, right? See, I outputted AE, EG, LB, and vital signs. I have selected last dates from all the 4 data sets for each subject, right? Now again, I will be setting all these 4 data sets as AEVS. So this is my first record. And out of these 3 data sets or 4 data sets, whatever we have, LB, EG, AE, I have to select last date again from these records. What do I need to do again? Again, I need to sort it by date. Then I need to do again last dot. First, we are selecting dataset by dataset. Then we are setting all the datasets. And then we need to select again last date for each subject again. So again, I'm sorting it by date and time. So this will be my RFP and DTC. This is my RFP and DTC. I should have at the end, I should have only one date for each subject. So these are my RFP entities. It might be coming from different dataset. Here, if I see for these subjects, it is coming from lab dataset. For this subject, it is coming from vital signs. For this dataset, it is coming from ECGs. For this dataset, it is coming from AE. Whatever is the last possible date for that subject in the entire study, that should be collected. So that is how we have collected. So you can use this piece of macro for that. I have showed you how to debug that macro or how to work on it. So now what information we got? We got study ID, domain, new subject ID, RFS TDC. We got all these dates. We got RFE and DTC. We got DHTTC. We got death flag is null because there are no deaths in our study. Age unit, sex, race, ethnic, all these variables are present in our raw data set itself. No need to again create them. We have these variables already. Sex, ethnic, race. We have race variable, we have country variable, we have DM dat, which is nothing but demographics collection date. All we need to do is we need to sort it. And we also have age variable. If you want to create age, you can also create that. I have a formula for creating. I have formula for creating. How do we create this date? So we'll have birth date, right? We already got the birth date information for the patient. And when did he sign the informed consent? That is the first date that has been collected in our study, right? If we subtract both these dates, that will be his age on the date, right? On this date. So let's say patient's birth date is somewhere around 1970 and informed consent sign date is 2013. So if we subtract the, let's say this is also January 1st and this one is also January 1st. If we subtract both of these, patient's age is around 43 years. So that is the age of the patient when he signed the informed consent, right? So you can also collect the date, create the date like that. Age is equal to, you can use int_ck function to subtract number of months and divided by 12. Number of months divided by 12 gives number of years. Death and the death flag will be missing because there is no information collected. RFXSTDTC is same as RFSTDTC. Age units will be in years. We are changing values of sex as male and what information is collected for sex here in the raw data set. It is collected as M or F, right? So we have that. We have converted DMDTC into standard date format. We also converted RFP and DTC, which we created here, into standard date format. And then we assigned labels. How do we assign label? By using a label statement. We are assigning all the labels for each variable. And then we are only keeping these variables which we need: study ID, domain, use subject ID, RFSTDTC, RFE and DTC. Let us run it till here and check. Yes, Sanjay, DM. Okay, we got all the variables that we need now. But some of the variable names are in lowercase, some of the variable names are in uppercase. But according to standard implementation guide rules, all the variable names should be in uppercase. The variable names were not supposed to be in lowercase. So, and the order of the variable should be this one. The first variable should be study ID, second should be domain, third should be use subject ID, fourth should be subject ID. This is the standard order that need to be followed. So for that, what am I doing? I'm using my return statement. Whatever the order you define it here, that will be the order created in my final dataset. Right now, this is not the order, right? My first variable is sex, second one is ethnic. I don't want this order. I want the order present in my implementation guide. So let us run this and check TM. See, now I got my standard order. Study ID, domain, new subject ID, RFSTDs. This is the order in the implementation guide, right? So, and still I have lowercase for my variable names. For that, what can I do? That is what I am saying previously. Options valid var name is equal to uppercase. If I run this piece of code and run any program, all the variable names will be changed into uppercase. Now I can run this step again. So now if I run this piece of code, options valid var name is equal to uppercase and run any data set, all my variable names will be in uppercase. Now let us open the data set and let us see. See, all the variable names has been changed into uppercase. That's all with the STTM demographics dataset. We have created all the required and expected variables. We have created all the required and expected variables. These variables can be skipped, like you can see permissible variables at some places. See, these can be skipped or dropped if you don't want in your study. Permissible variable ethnic. See, all these permissible, we haven't created envam or these variables, right? So permissible variables, if you have information, we have placed but DTC because we have information, so we have created this variable. If you don't have information, that's fine, but required and expected variables should be always present in the data set. And one more difference between required and expected is required variables cannot have a value null, because if I have, this is a required variable, if I have a value null here, how do I know which subject this is, right? But this is an expected variable. This can be null, but this variable should be present. Sometimes they have not given any drug for this patient, but this patient is present in the study. So then there can be a value null here. So this is an expected variable. These are required variables, because without having any identification, you can't predict which record belongs to which subject. So these variables should be always present and their values cannot be null for required variables. But for expected variables, they should be present in the dataset, but their values can be null. That's all with DM, guys. Any questions?